Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Okay, thanks a lot all for joining us. This is the App Advisory Show, episode 2. Delighted to have Paul Bulpett on from the Wow Company. Formerly did a bit of work with Xero as well. Really interesting guy. He won't say that because he won't always think he is that interesting, but I do. And I've known Paul since about 2014 and was really always very generous with his time and his knowledge. So one of the guys I always went to back in the day, and still now, actually still keep in touch. So thanks a lot for joining us today, Paul.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries. So in terms of a little bit about you, because the people who've been knocking around cloud accounting for a few years will recognise the name. There'll be some people who are new to cloud accounting who won't know much about you. So do you want to introduce yourself and your firm and a bit about your history?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Matt. I'm Paul Bulpett. Set up the Wow Company, firm of accountants in 2004. Obviously, the world was very different in 2004, but a lot of the principles that we set Wow up with still stand strong today. It was never really about the accounts for us. It was about the people behind the businesses. It was about helping them fulfill their dreams and bringing that all of that good stuff to life in a sustainable way. But it's always been about the people. Around about 2009, 2009, we very fortuitously stumbled across Xero, and were the first handful of firms in the UK to or in the Northern Hemisphere indeed to start using Xero and recommending Xero to clients. I'd love to say it was some sort of master stroke or genius. It was just lucky how we stumbled across it and started introducing Xero to our clients right from sort of 2009, 2010 in anger. And we've grown every year. We've grown every year since then.
Okay, cool. So we'll come back to the firm, and 2004, there's obviously little cloud around. So you've come from a manual desktop type of scenario into cloud.
Yeah.
But then when I met you, you were head of accounting for Xero. And I think what's been one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the show was I think it's interesting that you are still in practice, leading the firm, leading the digital transformation, but also then lending your hand with obviously Xero's growth. What was that like being on sort of both sides of the fence with the vendor? So I suppose you were Xero and you were your own customer, and then you were the customer the other time. So interesting scenario.
So it was absolutely fascinating. It was a wonderful experience. So a couple of things that made it easy was like my values, Wow's values, and Xero's values are all very heavily aligned. We're all very people focused. One of Xero's core values is human. So in that sense, culturally, there wasn't it was as good as seamless in that sense. But you imagine kind of running your marginally successful accounting firm to go into work for this hyper growth company was just an amazing experience. The people, the ambition, and really credit to Xero actually for having the foresight and the courage to invite a customer into their organization.
Yeah. Okay. But also good insights for them, right? That if there was that those values were crossing over, then it made sort of sense for them. Because one of the things I actually remember seeing, one of the first pictures I saw you, Paul, which we can talk about, of course, this picture was the ICAW element, and you're at Moorgate, I think, delivering one of the first sessions in one of the early Xero.
Yeah, so that was 2012. Yeah, the first XeroCon in 2012 was that?
I think it was. Yeah, I didn't go, so I went to one of the bigger later ones, but I think that was one of the first ones I'd seen where it was this is what it used to look like. So just explain what that was like. Those type of XeroCons.
So that was really exciting because you had a mix of people like us who sort of been working with Xero for a couple of years, and all of a sudden we were kind of ploughing our furrow in our little world, and then we were bumping into other people who'd also got religion and believe what we believe, and so some of those people like Jonathan Gaunt that you had on last week. I met there Grant Smith from Armstrong Watson, another friend of mine, James Clark. I met people that sort of like 8 years on still good friends with, and yeah, it was just very, very exciting. Like, you didn't realize it was small because it was the biggest like we had no idea that it was going to take out the Excel Centre and there was going to be like 5,000 people there. This was like, wow, this is amazing. Like the buzz and just hugely energizing. It's really good fun.
Yeah. And also that intimacy element, isn't it? When you've got a smaller business, even though you know it's going to grow, it like you say, it feels massive, but it's tiny, and then you sort of get to know that very small community, even though it feels a lot bigger than it is sometimes. I always feel that. Yeah,
like really good point. And a lot of those people that were there then are still quite close. But I think what's still present now is like that community, probably like the group of people listening to this show, watching this show, it's still very generous. Like still very generous. I still believe that there's more than enough food for everyone, and if we can all sort of like raise the collective bar, if we can all, it's the tide that makes all boats float higher.
Yeah. And how did you juggle? How was it juggling where you're trying to grow and transform your own firm, but then also you're trying to help Xero help other firms? That was pretty tough in some parts, like trying to get that balance right?
Yeah, it was a it was a crazy time, and looking back, I don't know how it worked. It was just too good an opportunity to say no to. I guess we were at a certain point with WOW where we've got people who are probably more capable than me managing and leading WOW day to day. So if I'm being completely honest, it certainly like the last 18 months probably had took a toll on me personally, but there were things in the business that I just wasn't able to give my attention to. But then you marry that with just like the day-to-day like inspiration, just being immersed in that ambition at Xero cannot help but have a positive impact in the rest of your life. Seeing how people with basically like massive funding can do it, and thinking, okay, well, how can I apply those same principles but self-funded into my accounting firm? So yeah, but probably wouldn't do it again, but I definitely wouldn't change it.
It was the right thing at the right time, and it's one of those things as well, I imagine. With
yeah, exactly. I've like reacquainted myself with my children. They know my name now.
That's good. Yeah, so I mean, that's the Xero experience, which I think is mega interesting, and like you say, a really good opportunity to see something different. But you mentioned there, going back with your firm, so 2004, and you talked about it was about the business owners and more personal element. But in 2004, you must have started on sort of desktop and more manual ways of working. So you've actually done the transformation to Xero. Are you primarily all Xero or all cloud now?
Yeah, like 99.something%.
Yeah.
Xero, yeah.
So on that, so you actually did a transformation, and I think what's interesting, we spoke before this about back in, when did you start moving to Xero as a firm?
So as a firm, we moved in 2009. So we actually moved our own firm's accounts onto Xero in 2009.
Yeah. So at that point, there was probably, I don't know, maybe a dozen people. I don't know how many in the UK. It would have been small numbers, I imagine, in terms of the...
Yeah, I think it was less than 10. I remember like the advisor page, there were fewer than 10 people when we joined.
Yeah. So to take that leap of faith with little support in terms of, yes, you've probably got New Zealand and other areas, but you've got this product which isn't known, doesn't have TV adverts, doesn't hold a Xerocon. Like, how did you manage that? Because obviously firms who're getting all of that support now, who are still sort of struggling along or stagnating a little bit on that project, how did you do that to say, right, we're going to transform and we're going to use this piece of kit that we like the look of and we're really aligned with? Like, what was the thought process to that, and how did you sort of achieve that?
Yeah, like good question. Clearly, we were, like as I said before, clearly we were lucky on some level. Like Xero panned out and continued to have the investment and invest in the product, which they're obviously still doing to today. But really, the thing for us was how it transformed how we engage with our clients. the difference between where we were before to where we were then, how our clients were engaged with their finances, it just, like, in my head, everything clicked. This is how we want to engage with clients. I don't want to get a Sage backup months after the year end. I want to be able to have a conversation right now over the phone and know what's going on. So in some ways we're lucky. In other ways, it was just a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we? And like clearly benefited from that. But it was driven by our client engagement model more so than any other more than any other driver.
Yeah. Okay. And you just essentially stated that to the clients you were working with, and I would assume some came with you, some took a bit longer, others were never going to come to that table with you, and you just accepted that as sort of the collateral damage of making this transition to a better way of working.
Yeah, but no one ever. So I don't think that there's a single business that we've ever switched to Xero that has then switched back or switched to another thing. Like I might be wrong. There's probably like over 1,000 businesses, more than 1,000 businesses that we've switched to Xero, and I'm not aware of any that have ever switched back. Everyone loves it. So in some respects, it was like a benefit because people saw Xero, and I don't think they completely, not that we ever misled them, but we got loads of benefit off the fact of they hated what they had before, and then all of a sudden it was something intuitive, something we could use. So we did the obvious thing, which was like phone around the people we know. We're like, oh, like, how about this? I'm doing this. Do you want to come and have a look? And like I couldn't help myself, and we had a group of people within WoW at the time who were all equally enthused, and they couldn't help themselves, and just like going and talking to people, and then they'd tell more people, and then when we ran events, we kind of stage it a little bit so that like people were strategically placed, so they then tell other people, and then clients were coming to us saying, oh, can we go? But it was driven by our belief that it was the best thing for their business. I'd never recommend something to someone that I didn't think was the right thing for their business.
Yeah.
And I think that hopefully that came across, that when our team did that came across. And yeah, probably the funny thing is I think we've still got someone on desktop accounting at WoW, like particular branded desktop accounting with a green logo.
Yeah.
And they were one of those people from the early day, because what happened was our team got to a point and they're like, look, I just don't want to take on people unless they're going to use Xero. So even now we'll take on people who aren't on Xero, but it's always conditional that within the first about 3 to 6 months, we will move them, but only in cases where we believe it's in their best interest, which is like, I don't know, most of the time, to be completely honest.
Yeah, okay. But again, like you said, going back to the point, if it's the right thing for their business and you can't see any valid reason why it wouldn't be, we're going to move them along. But then I think the key point there was that you're all on the same wavelength internally, that this is the right thing. So there's not that sort of misalignment, which I can see sometimes with firms. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen. Actually.
Not necessarily. We actually had there was a senior guy in the firm at the time and another manager who were both very skeptical about Xero.
Mm-hmm.
The senior guy refused to talk to his clients about it because he said, look, they can pay, I can't remember what it was at the time, they can pay £400 for Sage. They're not going to pay £20 a month for Xero. This will never catch on. So that would, like I get that, because change is hard for all of us and we all get there in our own time. But actually, if I was just pretty belligerent internally, and I said to this guy, look, this is the way that we're going, this is the way the firm's going, we can't offer the same level of client experience if we do it that way versus this way, like the cloud way. And he like we helped him go and set up his own firm, which a couple of years down the track became a Xero partner. And he but like a really sweet guy, loves his clients, but he had to get there in his own time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But if he'd have not gone and set up his own firm, he'd have been within the firm, and there would have always have been that friction, and we would have had to have accepted the level of mediocrity.
Yeah. And again, like you said, that misalignment. So it wasn't the fact he was misaligned for a temporary period, but how detrimental would that be holding on to that misalignment for that long? And I always feel as well, I hear that a lot, and I'm sure the sessions you've run, certainly when you were involved with Xero, where there's certain people within a firm who just, won't offer or entertain it. And I think the problem I have with that is I think it's the business owner's decision and not the assumption of the firm to say this is right or wrong for you. I think we should be offering, and if there's valid reason why it can't work or there's a timing issue or whatever it might be, then that's fair enough. But I think not to offer, in my opinion, is criminal. I think we should offer all the options, the right options for the firm to offer. But we need to be taking that forward. And I think we've all seen that a lot, really, where not quite got the alignment. But as you say, that person still came to the table. It was just the fact in their own time, under their own sort of steam, and when they got the change mindset in the right place as well. Okay, interesting. Now, also as well, like in terms of the tech, just thinking back to the point where you got involved with Xero, in terms of being a customer of Xero, I imagine the ecosystem was like pretty small. Yeah,
so I think the ecosystem was ReceiptBank.
Right. Okay.
Maybe ReceiptBank and Vend, but yeah, it was. It wasn't huge at that point.
It was tiny. So really, in terms of like, and I imagine like things and Find and Recode weren't around. Like no. I imagine it was the shell of Xero as we know it today.
So when I first used Xero, like the UK version still had dollar signs in it.
Yeah. Okay. I'd see that bug's gone. That was pretty long waiting for that. And so really, like, I don't suppose you saw all the great efficiencies that we see now for some years. So even though you still saw enough in it, even though it was quite I would say a lot more basic product than it is today, that to still go with it and get. But the point was the client experience. I imagine.
It was about the client experience, not the efficiency.
Yeah.
I would, so long as it was not significantly less efficient, we still would have gone with it, because it enabled us to do so much, has enabled us to do so much more with clients that we just couldn't have done otherwise.
And did you take a tool like ReceiptBank, or what you use, but whatever your tool is for that particular function, did you take that early doors, or was that like a secondary step when you did that?
So it was a secondary step because, secondary step for a couple of reasons. I think probably like one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. Was definitely a good thing, but ReceiptBank wasn't there. So we worked with Michael and Alexis at ReceiptBank before they even launched ReceiptBank. We used it, have used it, continue to use it at WOW internally, and then that just became part of our process. That and we've not looked back, really.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting though, but when there's only two things to look at, you're sort of 50% of the way through. I've done Xero, I've now got ReceiptBank. Whereas now I think people are looking going, I've done Xero, now I've got 893 apps to look at. So I'm like, so I think there's a bit of change there, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot, yeah.
And in terms of that, so you've have seen the ecosystem grow over the years you've been involved. How is that sort of, how have you evolved in the ecosystem? I know you don't master all of them, but you'll have your own internal set of tools which you like to use, and you'll see the opportunity to use. How have you sort of engaged with those apps that you've brought into your own tool set?
I think so. Certainly to like begin with, for the first couple of years, it's always like you see something like bright shiny thing, you're like, wow, I'm going to do that, and we're going to do this. And then sort of like the account manager from the particular app comes out and speaks with you, and you're like, yeah, and we're going to do this and this and this. And then you realize that like it's just not feasible. Realize quite quickly that it's not feasible. So actually we deliberate. We have like quite a deliberate, I wouldn't say slow, but definitely like a deliberate process. We want to see that it works. We want to see what the support's like, but also just see the need. So there's some, probably to like people listening here, like preaching to the converted, but there's obviously some apps that are universally applicable, like Go Cardless and ReceiptBank, that we do lots with. And then there'll be others that are industry specific. But it's really, you just, like I think a principle in business is you need to figure out what you can be the best in the world at. And we can't be the best in the world at 800 different apps.
Yeah.
We probably can't be the best in the world at 8 different apps. So actually it's just a case of like focusing on some core ones and then like having an awareness of what's around the outside, what's possible that you can introduce people to.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'm always a believer that you can max on sort of 1%, which is around 8. I think, and that's if you've got a team that's sort of committed to it. I think it's difficult to do that because all these apps are moving so quickly. There's so many new features being added. There's all integrations that are constantly being added. I think we're certainly seeing with the likes of GoCardless and Stripe that they're getting their own ecosystem. So we're now getting ecosystems within an ecosystem. So it's difficult to do that. And how I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of firms like waste time on research around apps which are out of their core 6, 7 that they're happy to work with. How have you guys handled that in terms of somebody comes in, it's not within your mastery area, as you suggested, we've got to be good at these things, and if we're not good at those, how have you started to work? Are you working with others, or is it have you got some sort of process internally where you take that to others? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I guess we're always looking for solutions. We've got quite a clear map in our head of not in our head, we've got a clear map of how our firm works. And if something comes along that can solve a problem somewhere there, it kind of like leaps out and presents itself at us. Sometimes when there's a lot of noise, sort of like in the accounting community, and everyone's talking about a particular app, there's always sort of like a flavor of the month. Sometimes we'll scratch our heads and think like, why is it, like, what's the fuss? Are we missing something? And, like more often than not, we're not missing. we're not missing. I don't mean to sound conceited, but we're not missing something. So again, it's a very deliberate process. But if you imagine, we've got now hundreds of clients using Xero, and they're doing their own explorations. So within Xero HQ, we can see which apps they're using. So as soon as we see that apps are getting more popular, we're like, okay, well, we need to investigate that and do more there. But I think the fundamental thing is the position in our clients, the position we have in our client's mind isn't that we're the tech experts. We never position ourselves as the tech experts, and I don't believe that we need to be. We're just like providing them with solutions every now and then, and actually people are perfectly grateful just to say, oh look, I've seen this solution, it might fit your problem. They're not expecting us to be the experts. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
so let's say, I don't know, you mentioned there like someone needs a till system and they say, hey, what can I work with Xero and a till system? Is it like you suggest, well, here's a couple of till systems that we've got clients connected to, I suggest you go and do your own research to check they're going to be correct? Is that how you do it, more suggest than sort of commercial recommendation? Is that how you sort of work?
Like 100%, unless we can be absolutely confident that that's the right thing, there's nothing to be gained. There's nothing like, we can only fall on our face because we recommend something because we've heard a friend of a friend say that it's good, or we're effectively winging it. Like, you wouldn't do that with any other advice to your clients, would you? You wouldn't advise on something, like as a firm of accountants, you wouldn't advise on something that you weren't sure that you know about. So what I tend to do is there's people like yourselves, Matt, like experts in the industry that actually know about this stuff. So and I've come to you before about stock systems. I don't know where to begin for stock system. Like, I can name them, but I don't know which are best for certain types of industries. So I would much rather come to someone like you, and if the client wants to do it properly, there's that kind of expertise available.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you that's fine. That's good. I think covered that really. So what you're saying is you've got your apps, we call it AppStack. We're going to come on to AppStack shortly, but you've got your tool set that you're happy using, and you've spent the time, you've invested the time in learn as much as you can about those, and you'll support on those. Anything outside of those, that tool set, you're going to either plug into the app. Because I think one thing that I think firms have got to realise as well is that a lot of the apps have got like onboarding teams and things now. They're ready to speak to the customer direct, and it's almost like where you start and stop as a firm. And we're speaking to a lot of firms. I've spoken to a lot of firms in the last year, certainly on some of the group sessions that we've done, where they're spending time researching things, not necessarily charging it, and with no exact outcome that they can even help. And we're hearing this a lot, that firms are just wasting a lot of time doing the research. And I'm like, you should be putting stuff back onto the client to say, well, give me your clear requirements, and if we've got those, maybe we can start to help you research. But I think a lot of the burden's being taken from a phone call. I'm going to write all this down, then I'm going to try and go and find an app. And I just think it's the wrong way around it.
But like, I don't know where that's come from, because I see people like speak to other firms, and it's like they feel the pressure to do this. They're like, oh, like, how do you do it? I'm like, we don't do it. But it's almost like everyone else, it's like their emperor's new clothes. Everyone's talking about it and they think everyone else is doing it. And then, yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of the lack of process as well. Like, you've got a process, we don't do that. And this is where, we take them to one of our preferred partners, or we take them direct to the app that we've got a really good relationship, or we're seeing that this particular app is on Xero HQ. So we're going to point them towards that, because that almost proves itself. So I think some of it is around that. And I think the other thing that we've come across, and I think we spoke about this before, Paul, is like, we tracked a lot of accounting referrals between 2016 and 2018, and 80% of them did nothing, because they were just curious about what they could have. Now, we didn't do much research, because what we would do is say, hey, Paul, that's great, you want a system. Can you just get that information to us written down, and then we can take a look at that and see what we can do. Like, 80% of people never came back to us in those 2 years. Because it was like, I'm just curious, but I'm not willing to tell you. If I can rant to you on the phone and you can write it all down, but then you're going to misunderstand or miscommunicate, and people are normally in the flow like me, who chat too quick. It's just like hard to take that down, right? So yeah. I think that's some of it, just having that process of, put the brakes on, you get some information, then maybe I can point you in the right direction. If not, it's going to be difficult for us to take you forward. Yeah. Interesting, really. Okay, well, we're sort of rattling through this, mate, at the moment. So, and in terms of like, you mentioned there's some staff and some like client changes as well. Have you found what's been the most challenging, like gaining clients or gaining staff? Because this is sort of a question I ask quite a lot of firms.
Good question. The challenge, I suppose, is the people, but it's a really great challenge, something that like we love, because we just feel like we're I don't know the analogy, but like panning for gold. You're just trying to like sift through to find gems, and then when you do get those gems, some like really fantastic, beautiful people and then you watch them develop, and then you see them take what you believe and go out to the world. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's certainly the most. So yes, it's the bigger challenge, but it's a really great challenge.
Yeah, I think a bit like you say, it's great watching people grow into this, and I found that it's great watching people be better at it than you. Like, it's my idea, but actually you execute it a lot better than me, and I think that's some of the satisfaction I take, that I had a good idea, but someone else has much better executing and working to their strengths.
Yeah, exactly that. It's the story of my life, actually, being surrounded by people that are a lot better than me at pretty much everything.
I was as good as them once, is what I say, but I'm no longer any good at that. So I think the other part as well is, I just want to talk about something that you've noticed in the cloud account space. Obviously, you'll be keeping in touch with what's going on, but obviously you're running your own firm and got your own things to do. So anything that sort of piqued your interest or you've heard a lot of recently?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of things. So one thing, I think, in the current situation, it feels like there's accelerated adoption. So give you an example, within Wow's client base, there's like clearly almost everyone's on Xero, but then all of a sudden people are a bit more interested in Go Cardless to help them manage their cash flow, or Receipt Bank to help them automate their accounts process. Yeah. So I think that bit's quite interesting, almost like that forced adoption. It'd be interesting to know if that's playing out across the way. The second thing, I guess, is kind of related to your previous question about how we recommend apps and people feeling the pressure to go and talk about apps. There's all this stuff about apps. And like my pet peeve is app stacks or app stacking. Like, most people running businesses do not give a flying flip about like app stacking. I don't know where this verb app stacking has come from, but but it's rubbish, and I really want to like relieve some of the pressure on like firms. Certainly if there's anyone listening to this that feels like they should be able to app stack in their firm, like it just not like, I think having an app stack, having, like you say, your toolbox is definitely a thing. Have processes clearly delineated, but this thought that as accountants all of a sudden we're going to go out app stacking like our other clients is like, it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, so the term app stack is should definitely be like an internal term to the firm to say like, this is our solution belt. So when we're taking people through the accelerator program, things like that, we build an app stack for the firm, which is like the 7 to 8. But then we don't go to the client and say, we've got some apps for you. It's then about talking, it's about having a process of talking to the clients or reviewing the clients or running diagnostics on the clients to tell them where the problems are.
Yeah.
And we've got some solutions, of which they happen to be an app called. But we've plugged into the problem first. And I think at the moment we see a lot of firms go app first. I've just signed up, a bit like you said, I've been sold the dream. And don't get me wrong, I love all the apps. I think they've all got their place. And then I think at that point, it's a case of we've got to go and plug into someone's problem first, and then we've got some solutions to go back with. So a lot of what we're educating is, yes, you do need an app stack, but it's a very internal term, and your clients don't really want you to turn up with a, here's some logos and we're going to give them that. Like, we need to have a process of talking to the client to gauge what the problems are, to say, hey, you might need to go cardless, or hey, you need a credit control solution, and here's a couple of options we've got. So I think it's more of that for me. But yeah, the app stack, we certainly play into it, sort of like download and build your own app stack. I think it's important to understand what your definition of your tool set is, but it's certainly in terms of client comms and engagement with clients, an app stack is completely irrelevant. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I don't exactly know where it's come from, but it has turned up, and maybe we might have been a little bit of a player in
No. Absolutely not. But I think something like credit control is like a really, really good thing. If someone's got really good example, if someone's got a problem with their credit control, you don't go in and offer an invoice chasing app. You like figure out what the problem is, what's the process. Like, it might just be that they're not doing any invoice chasing whatsoever. So do that bit first, or they don't know who owes the money, get that bit sorted first. And maybe there's an app that can help. So yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
what we're finding a lot of firms at the moment is knowledge of apps is known. So I know all the main apps that are being floated around in the ecosystem. What isn't happening is like a process and a commerciality to them. So you know all this stuff, but then you can't really learn, you don't know how to apply it. And a bit like you said, you need to do some sort of fact find on what the business's process is to work out if this will even fit what the problem is. So I think there's that process, and then commerciality, how are you going to make some money out of that? How do you do that? So I think those are the interesting bits for me. Okay, and a bit more onto you, and not necessarily the big cloud accounting ecosystem, but what's been your current favourite app? And that can be personal or business or whatever. Like, what's your bit of tech that you're quite enjoying using, and why?
So it's probably not the most exciting answer, but like right now, over the course of the last couple of months, Slack like at WoW has like massively come into its own, just in terms of like connection, involvement. Like anyone that uses Slack knows that you've obviously got your channels, so we can collaborate on clients in client channels, projects in project channels. And like we can see, like from the Slack usage over the last couple of months internally at WoW, just gone right up through the roof. So have to say I'm very, very grateful for Slack at the moment.
And honestly, I mean, I think Slack has found its point in time, a bit like Zoom and Google Hangouts and all these type of collaborative tools. And are you using that purely as an internal tool, or are you collaborating with clients through that medium as well?
Mainly internal. So we've got another business which is a community for agency owners, and we run a forum there that's based on Slack. At WoW, we've got a couple of clients invited into Slack channels, but we tend to just keep Slack as our internal thing. And like, I don't want to prescribe to clients how they should engage with us. Like, you can email me or phone me or whatever else.
Yeah. Okay. And we're using Slack before this whole lockdown anyway. It's just the fact it's been more greatly used now.
Yeah, correct. So we've used Slack for at least 3 years, maybe sort of like 3 or 4 years. And we used something called Yammer before, which
Yeah.
I think migrated into Microsoft Teams. I don't think Yammer still exists, does it?
I think it's still knocking around actually, but I think Teams has overtaken in that space. But Yammer is still about. I do know some firms who do still use it.
Yeah. So we use Yammer before. I think that internal sort of like communication, collaboration, just getting rid of those like round robin emails has been quite a thing.
Perfect. Right, well, I think we're up, mate, on the time. We're sort of trying to keep it to around the 40 minutes. That's 37. Thanks a lot for your time, Paul. That's been very honest and generous with your time, and give us some good insights into what you've done with your firm.
No, thanks for having me.
No, great, honestly. And as I say, we sort of do try and keep in touch a couple of times a year anyway, so it's good to do it in front of a crowd today. But yeah, no, thanks a lot, Paul, and thanks a lot for being part of the today's show. So this is going to be, for those who are watching this live, this will be going out on all of the Spotify and iTunes and all of those areas, also onto YouTube. And then we've got some guests all set up for the future weeks. And we've got Rachel Prideaux of Figure Fairy, who's a recent Xero Award winner for the next session, all being well, internet savvy. So thanks a lot for attending all, and I will catch you all soon.